I am so tired. I don't know if you can tell. This is the third day in a row now. I have stacked trees on my truck so that it is about 3 times its original height. And then taken them and unstacked them and repeated 3 days in a row, as well as everything else. As well as I just installed a 300-pound washer. I might be exaggerating a little, but a 300-pound washer, we'll say. And I now have to go take it back because the people who are renting it said it was dirty, and so they don't want to rent it. So I've got to go pick that back up and then go do a bunch of other things tomorrow. And my upper body is dead as of today. But I thought I'd get you guys Jim Butcher's White Knight, which is book 9 of the Dresden Files. This one is chapter 13. So if you've missed those other chapters, or if you've missed those other books, do go ahead, take a look down in the playlists below. Also, you can take a look at patreon.com/Hitchcock Handyman, no spaces, and vote for what books you would like to see more of, what activities, what things like that. Even put comments as to what books you would like us to read next. So anyway, while you are looking at that and or reading along with me, let me go ahead here and start chapter 13. Thoughtlessly running headlong after someone alone at night in Chicago is not generally a bright idea. This is stupid, I panted to myself. Harry, you jackass. This is how you keep getting yourself into trouble. The gray cloak moved with the long, almost floating stride of an athlete running the mile and turned into an alley, where the shadows grew thicker, and where we would be out of sight of any of the cops or emergency response people. I had to think about this. I needed to figure out what he was doing. Okay, so I'm a gray cloak. I want to get Anna Ash. So I start a fire. No, wait. I use one of the incendiary devices like the one in Murphy's Saturn. Put it on a kitchen timer on a couple of floors below Anna's place. Cut the building's power, phones, and alarms, and set the whole shebang on fire. Boom. Then I wait outside Anna's door for her to emerge in a panic so that I can murder her, leave, and let the evidence burn in the subsequent inferno. Now, all it looks like is an accident. Only I don't expect Anna to have a pair of world-class wizards on her hand. And I sure as hell never saw Mouse coming. The dog barks, and all of a sudden the hall is full of people who can witness the murder, and there's no way to make it look accidental. Someone is almost certain to contact the authorities and send in the whirling lights within a few minutes, and there goes my whole evening. No use trying to complete a subtle hit now. So what do? I don't want attention, that's for sure. Or I wouldn't be trying so hard to make this murder look like an accident. I'm cautious, smart, patient. Or I wouldn't have gotten away with it in 4 other cities. I do what a smart predator does when a stalk turns sour. I bug out. I got a car nearby, a getaway vehicle. Greycloak reached the end of the alley and turned left with me about 20 feet behind him. Then he rounded a corner and sprinted into a parking garage. I didn't follow him. See, since I'm such a competent and methodical killer, I assume the worst. That anyone in pursuit will display just as much intelligence and resourcefulness. So what I do is pull the chase into a parking garage, where there's lots of angles that will break line of sight. But my getaway car isn't parked there. There's no way I'm going to wait around to pay the attendant, and smashing my way out would attract the attention I'm trying to avoid. The plan is to lose a pursuer in the ample shadows, ramps, doorways, and parked cars in the maze of the garage, and go to my car once I've given him the slip. I kept sprinting down the street and rounded a corner. Then I stopped, crouched, and ready to continue running. The far side of the garage had no parking places, nor did the alley. So Greycloak's car had to be either on the street in front of the garage or on the street along its side. From that corner, I could watch both. I hunkered down beside a city trash can and hoped that I was as clever as I seemed to think I was. I was pretty sure it would have been at best stupid and at worst lethal to pursue Greycloak into a dark corner of the parking garage. I might have one hell of a punch, but I was as fragile as the next person, and concerning Greycloak might draw out the savagery of desperation. If I slipped up and he got too close to me, he might drop me like a pair of dirty socks. Always assuming, of course, that he wasn't an actual warden, in which case he might as well hit me with lightning or fire or any number of other nasty attacks of choice. That was a thought I found more than a little comfortable, really. I spent most of my adult life living in fear of the council's wardens. They'd been my persecutors, my personal Führers, and despite the fact that I'd become one, I felt an almost childish glee in the notion that a warden might be my bad guy. It would give me a perfect opportunity to lay out some long-deserved payback with perfect justification. Unless, of course, it was a warden doing it under orders. Once upon a time, I've had told you that the White Council was made up of basically decent people who valued human life. Now I knew better. The Council broke the laws when it saw fit to do so. It executed children who, in their ignorance, violated those same laws. The war, too, had made the Council desperate, more willing to take chances and make hard decisions. That amounted to other people getting killed, while the Council's bony collective asses stayed as covered as possible. I didn't seem reasonable to think that a legitimate warden could have sunk to such measures, or that Captain Lucio, the warden's commander, would condone it. But I've gotten used to being disappointed in the honor of society, of the Council in general, and the wardens in particular. For that matter, I probably shouldn't expect too much rationality out of a Greycloak either. My scenario to predict his behavior was plausible, rational, but a rational person wouldn't be going around murdering people and making it look like suicide, would he? I was probably wasting my time. A shadowy figure vaulted from the roof of the parking garage and dropped 6 stories to the ground, landing on the sidewalk in a crouch. Greycloak was still for a second, maybe listening, and then rose and began to walk, quickly but calmly, toward the street and the cars parked along it. I blinked. Son of a gun! I guess sometimes logic does work. I clenched my teeth, gripped my staff, and rose to confront Greycloak and blow him straight to hell, and stopped. If Greycloak truly was part of the Black Council, working to undermine the White Council and generally do whatever large-scale badness they intended to do, blowing him to hell might not be the smart thing to do. The Black Council had been, if you will pardon the phrasing, a phantom menace. I was sure that they were up to no good, and their methods thus far seemed to indicate that they had no inhibitions about the ending of innocent lives, reinforced by Greycloak's willingness to burn a building full of people to death to cover up the murder of a single target. It fit their pattern, shadowy, nebulous, leaving no direct, obvious evidence of who they were or what they wanted. If they existed at all, that is. So far, they were just a theory. Then again, Greycloak's getaway car had just been a theory, too. This could be a chance to gain badly needed intelligence on the Black Council. Knowledge is the ultimate weapon. It always has been. I could let Greycloak go and tail him to see what I could learn before I brought the hammer down. Maybe he'd lead me to something vital, something as critical as Enigma had been to the Allies of World War II. On the other hand, Maybe he'd lead me back to nothing. No covert organization worth its salt would allow an operative into the field without planning for the contingency of said operative being compromised. Hell, even if Greycloak volunteered everything he knew, there would almost certainly be cutouts in place. All of which assumed he really was part of the Black Council. A big assumption. And when you assume, you make an ass out of you and umption. If I didn't stop him while I had the chance, Greycloak would strike again. More people would die. Yeah, Harry. And how many more people will die if the Black Council keeps rising to power? Damn it. My gut told me to drop Greycloak right now. The faces from police photos flickered through my thoughts. In my imagination, the slain women stood beside me, behind me, their glassy, dead eyes intent upon their killer, and their desire to be avenged. I longed with an almost apocalyptic passion to step into the open and lay waste to this murdering asshole. But then reason told me otherwise. Reason told me to slow down, think, and consider how to do the most good for the most people. Hadn't I been telling myself only hours ago that reason had to guide my action, my decision, if I was going to control myself? It was hard. It was really, really hard. But I fought off the adrenaline and lust for a fight, and hunkered back down, thinking furiously, while Greycloak got into a green sedan, started it, and pulled out onto the street. I crouched between two parked cars and waited out of sight until Greycloak drove by me. I pointed the end of my staff at the car's back panel, gathered my will, and whispered, "Fozare!" Raw force lanced out, focused into the tiniest area I could envision, and struck the car with a little pop, no louder than the produced by stray bits of gravel tossed up against a vehicle's undercarriage. The car went by without slowing, and I got the license number as it left. Once it was gone, I murmured, "Tractus," keeping my will focused on the staff, and drew it back until I could rise into the light of the street lamp and peer at the end of a long length of oak. A fleck of green paint, half the size of a dime, had adhered to the end of the staff. I licked my fingertip and pressed it to the paint, lifting it off the staff. I had a small box of waterproof matches in one box of the duster. I opened it with one hand, dumped the matches, and then carefully placed the fleck of paint inside. "Gotcha," I muttered. Greycloak, in all probability, would ditch the car before long, so I didn't have much time. If he slipped away any further, harm he would cause would be on my head. I refused to let that happen. I put the closed matchbox into my pocket, turned, and ran back toward Elaine and Anna. By the time I got there, the block was lit nearly daylight bright, with the roaring flames from the apartment building and a steady increasing number of flashing emergency lights. I found Elaine, Anna, and Mouse, and walked toward them. "Harry!" Elaine said, relief on her face. "Hey, you get him?" "Not yet," I said. "Got some follow-up work to do. You have somewhere safe?" "My room at the hotel should be safe enough. I don't think anyone knows who I am. The Amber Inn." "Right. Take Anna there. I'll call you." "No," Anna said firmly. I glanced at the building burning and squinted at Anna. "I guess you'd rather have a quiet night at home, huh?" "I'd rather make sure the rest of the Ordo is all right," she said. "What if the killer decides to go after one of them?" "Elaine," I said, expecting her support. Elaine shrugged. "I'm working for her, Harry." I muttered a quiet curse under my breath and shook my head. "Fine. Get them all and fort up. I'll call you by morning." Elaine nodded. "Come on, Mouse," I said. I took his lead, and we headed for home. And Little Chicago. Thank you for listening to Chapter 13 of the Dresden Files, White Knight with me. Stay tuned for the other chapters, and also, like I said, if you want, go ahead and go to patreon.com/Hitchcock Handyman and take a look at some of the polls and some of the ideas and thoughts and things that we have moving forward on that page. And let's go ahead and see if we can't push this channel off into the future and have it continue growing. Again, I want to thank you guys for all your support and all that you do. You have a wonderful and blessed day.